got a good lift here. And this is a PB lift, by the way. So that's notable because you see a lot of people who have fantastic technique or can demonstrate what seemingly fantastic technique with 50% of the max, 60% of the max, empty bar, whatever. But it's really interesting to see what happens when somebody's at PB territory, especially when their experience. So lifting 275 years, great job, really strong. But what's happening? What can we see happening? And notable that he's using the deadlift suit, so we'll touch on that as well. So you can see, right, as he initiates the pull. Let's look at the bar path check first. Bar path, brilliant. Yeah, you can't see perfectly from this angle, but he's going, it's perfectly straight line. He's not getting pushed forward. It's going ever so slightly back because he's starting with the bar a little bit out in front. Blah, 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 blah. What I don't like, simple fix, he's working against those shorts. It's like you're just wasting so much energy. So either get those shorts lifted all the way up into your crotch, and if you're going for a PB and you're slow at lockout, maybe just banging a little bit of talc on for the sake of performance is going to improve. He's going to make that lockout a little bit easier. Like if you were going genuinely for a max out here, you'd probably get 280, 282.5 if you just move your shorts up and put a bit of talc on your thighs. But in terms of optimization going forward, you can see that he's setting up what appears to be a really good position. But this position here, watch what happens to his hips and his shoulders as he initiates the pull. So as he initiates the pull, his hips are rising faster than his shoulders, which even though he's getting away with it quite a lot in the suit because the suit is kind of holding his torso in position really well. But realistically, he's getting pulled, his back's getting pulled out like into a more flex position, and his shoulders are getting pulled over the bar a little bit more as he initiates the pull. But the thing is that like this positioning is so obvious. The thing is with Mark, like on this one, he doesn't need to, because if you look at the bar speed off the floor, some people like a lot of people probably comment on that if you put it on social media and put, speed off the floor is amazing. But the speed off the floor is amazing because he's getting pulled into this rounded position. So it's either one of two things. It can be just discipline, and it can be, right, well, actually, he's just not working hard enough off the floor and he's being a bit lazy in terms of the discipline of maintaining the position that he's been holding in his warm-up sets as he gets up to his top set, because maybe he's a little bit scared because it's feeling a little bit hard off the floor, so he's letting himself go into that position that's giving him the illusion that the bar's moving easier. But the thing is that, like, if you borrow that kind of efficiency off the floor or speed off the floor, you have to pay it back further up, because you remember you're trading that floor speed in the kind of shoulders over bar rounded position for a less optimal position above the knee to lock out. Because what you're going to have to do here, because you've rounded your back to allow the bar to come off the floor a little bit easier, so your back when you're above the knee, even though you've moved it really fast to the knee, is in this flex position. So that's why if you extend your hips now, and even if you fully extend the hips to the bar, you're still not going to be locked out because your back's in this kind of flex position. That's why I don't agree with the people cueing glutes when they're really rounded over the bar, and because it's not necessarily the glutes, the hip extension that's going to help them finish the lift. The hip extension, they can get to the point where the hip's fully extended, but you haven't finished the lift. And that's why you see some people get stuck almost at lockout with the hips fully extended, is because the back's still flexed so you need to either get really strong concentrically in terms of back extension to get you out of that flex position, or you have to rebend the knee and kind of ramp it up and hitch it, etc. And that's where why I'm not a massive fan of using glutes as a cue for people who have the bar above the knee, who are struggling a little bit, and the lockout slowed. I think what Mark could do here would be actually work on his, like, he's got so much floor speed that I feel like he could just be a little bit more disciplined from the floor to maintain that position. And I just think that he's going to be his lockout's going to be rewarded a little bit more if he can resist the urge of being pulled into spinal flexion as he initiates the pull to give him that floor speed, and he maintains a more kind of closer to neutralish spine, then he's going to have a much easier job to lock out. Even if the bar's going slow because it's a high percentage weight, positionally, then he can just focus on glutes, because if his spine's pretty much neutral and he doesn't have to work his erectors concentrically to finish the lift or hitch, then he can focus on the glutes cue and hips cue, because all he needs to focus on is on a strong hip extension to finish the lift. So if being disciplined from the floor doesn't help Mark tidy up this lift, then playing around with a slightly higher hip position may help him, because it might just be a momentum thing where he's just tried to lift with his hips a little bit too low. Then they've got shot up. These hips are trying to find a more optimal position that they can maintain, but then that momentum's taking the hips even higher, and then therefore pulling his shoulders over the bar into a more flexed position. Maybe if he starts with his hips a little bit higher in the start position, maybe he'll have an easier job maintaining that position throughout the lift, and less likely for the hips to shoot up. Again, it may feel like it feels a little bit more difficult off the floor, but clearly you can see from this video, the floor speed is something that he can sacrifice a little bit, because it's so fast off the floor considering it's a maximal weight. So a little note on suited deadlift. So Mark's using the suit here, and this may be because he's relatively new to the suit. You can see what he's doing here compared to raw. What he's doing with the compared to raw is he's getting his hips a lot lower. So let's say 85% of whatever weight this is, say 240-ish. I suspect that this position here, I reckon he's going to be able to maintain it, and I reckon the lift's going to look really, really good. And the note being that the hips are a lot lower than they would be if he was lifting in raw, because when he's lifting raw, if he tried to lift with this lower hip position, he'd just get shot up straight away and then get pulled over the bar, and his back would round, etc., etc. The bar path would be all over the place, because you simply don't have as much tension as you do in the suit. And logically, the lower that you can get into the suit in terms of your hip position is the more tension you're going to put into the suit. So if you do a stiff leg deadlift with in a suit, for instance, and you compare it to raw, you might not actually notice that much difference, because if you think with a stiff leg deadlift in the suit, the tension that you're creating, other than the torso being a little bit tighter, like say you've got a bit more tension through your radiation, like wearing a belt. But in terms of tension and creating in terms of pop in that stiff leg deadlift position, you're not actually putting much tension into the suit. So for somebody who hasn't used a suit before, and they're struggling to imagine what this feels like, imagine you're wearing your tightest pair of jeans and you go and you flex and you bend over with your hips high and your legs almost straight. You are going to feel a bit more tension than, say, if you weren't wearing your tight jeans. Yeah. But you're going to feel a significant amount more tension if you flex at the knee and allow your hips to sit back down a little bit lower. Like the tension in your jeans is just going to increase significantly. So that's the same principle as what we're doing in the deadlift suit. So Yeah. So try and load the deadlift suit by almost feeling like you almost looks like you're crouching down a little bit more. Is going to load the suit a little bit more, or significantly more, but there is going to be a cut-off point where you go past the point where you that's optimal, that's going to be, and you're going to get to that. But if you go past the point and you start with the hips too low, the same error is going to creep in as they do in raw, where your hips shoot up to as you initiate the pull, and then you get pulled over the bar. So yeah, if you generally, for most people, the your deadlift suit is going to afford you to set up with the hips a little bit lower. That kind of lower hip position that some people try and do when they do it raw and then they get shot up out of, you try get closer to this when you're wearing a suit. You're going to be in a you're going to have more tension in the start position that's going to assist you in maintaining whatever position that you that you do as you initiate the pull. So that's a thing to note. So I've had the question: do you need to go for a lower hip position when you're using a suit? No, definitely not. You could just use the same position as raw. But I do feel that most people, if you put your time in, you are going to get a little bit more benefit from getting a lower hip position in the suit, because it's just going to create more. You're going to use the tension that creating, but you're still going to get a benefit from just wearing a suit loose and just copying your raw mechanics. So I would find that if you've got loads and loads of time to prep for using a suit and using it more efficiently, then I'd take it to the extreme. I'd do some like speed work, 50% triples, loads of sets, and I would just basically try and crouch down even more until you find your limit where you're like, oh my goodness, I can't maintain that. You get shot up out of, and then you set up just above that position, and then you know that's going to be ideal for you to maintain in terms of. But it's going to take some experimentation to get there, and loads of practice in terms of working sets. But if you haven't used a suit before and you're going to use a suit at your next comp, and you haven't got much time to prep for it, just setting up the with similar to your raw, not going too tight with the suit so it's altering your mechanics. You're going to get the benefit of tension or increased tension, just much like an enhanced belt. And if you get confident, the more sessions that you get in, or the more sets that you get in, going slightly lower than your raw, you're probably going to find a benefit. But it's probably not going to be worth the risk of going to this like significantly lower position, because it's just going to feel alien, and you're just gonna get got shut up all over the place, and you're gonna compromise that bar position, that compromise the bar path. So yeah, the same principle applies throughout. Always prioritize the bar path. If you've got a really, really short prep for the deadlift suit, then just setting up close to raw, and don't sacrifice your raw mechanics, and see if you can get a couple of percent out of using the suit. Or even if you don't get a couple of percent out of using the suit, but the in terms of performance, but your working set that you do at comp feels a little bit easier to recover from for your other events than it would be if you did it raw, then it's going to be worth it. If you do have a little bit longer time to prep, then I would suggest doing some sessions where you're exploring with this lower hip position and building it up over time, and finding where that threshold is, using 50% speed work roughly to exaggerate that kind of start position and get it really low, and find where the cutoff point is, where yeah, you're loading the suit maximally, but you're in a not a good position to produce force. Try and find that sweet spot for you, and also take note that it may change from day to day depending on recovery, but obviously that's the same principle as raw. But yeah, if you have a little bit longer to prep, then trying that and getting used to it and maintaining that integrity throughout the lift is of utmost importance.